All right, hey guys, welcome back to the 42 Days of Magical Practice. We're on day 22. 22. We're about halfway through. Pretty cool.
We are.
And today we're going to talk about focus. We're going to talk a little bit about the exercise of focus as a meditation in and of itself. We're also going to talk about eliminating distractions on the path of creating something specific that you're going after in your life. So I think be probably best, since we're like halfway through, to talk about it from a broad view
Right.
and look at how do these distractions arise and kind of the different things that can kind of pull us off the path and why we need focus both in a broad sense, first, and then we'll kind of drill down into the technicalities of focus within meditation.
Right. And so again, we're going to get both aspects of that hawk flying in the sky, right? So it's like the broad expanse of the landscape and how it plays, what is the context? And
Right.
then that laser like focus in on that mouse that's running across the field,
So to speak.
of 10 acres, right? So how do I take out those distractions and focus just on that one thing? Because at 100 miles an hour plus dive, you do not want to be distracted.
Right.
When the ground is rushing toward you at 100 plus miles an hour and somebody this big is trying to get away from you, and that's your target.
Right.
So, and that's pretty much what it is. It's a good analogy for what we're doing.
I mean, would you say that when we even initially select, I want to produce this, I want to manifest this thing in my life or in my practice or in my spiritual connection or whatever, do you think that that's it almost seems like it's proverb that the moment that you choose something and you're like, I'm going to put everything else on hold to put all my attention on this, that those distractions start to pop up and start to kind of like, oh, but what about me? This is important too,
Yeah, and that's all us, right? It's not some outside force that's trying to screw with you,
Right.
basically. I mean, that's a lot of people get trapped in that idea, and that's ridiculous,
Right.
in that aspect. So it's,
Again, also we come back to the idea of is it, a higher power? Is this outside of what's best for me and best for others? Is that why I'm getting distracted or pulled off the path? Maybe I'm not supposed to do this or not supposed to achieve this right now. Those things come up too.
yeah, I mean, I guess they come up. I mean, obviously they come up for a lot of people. I mean, after a while, I think that those things go by the wayside as you have more confidence
Right.
and produce more things efficiently and effectively on a regular basis. That's going to go by the wayside. Obviously, in some extreme cases, if you're sort of stopped in a way, you have to reevaluate. Some people will go through the initial processes that we've done right from the beginning, and they'll hit a point where they're like, I don't really need that. I don't really want it anymore. So they'll readjust, but their whole outlook, their whole view will have changed. So it's flying from one field to another field, right? So there's just that hedgerow in between. So there's nothing wrong with that as well.
So if you're in the middle of a series of practices to try to create something,
Right.
and you're in the middle of it and you realize that you no longer want that thing,
Right.
you're not arbitrarily keeping yourself to finish the rest of that, process around that thing.
What would be the point?
Right. So you're letting it go if your perspective broadens or something changes or you realize that that's not of
Which is
interest.
different than giving up.
Yeah.
Those are two separate things.
And different than thinking that something else is more important that pops up.
Right. I mean, again, there's a big difference between those things, right? Realizing and really feeling it wholeheartedly, excuse me, that you don't actually want that, or you don't need to acquire that anymore. You don't need to create that anymore, is a big difference between that and just saying, oh, this is too hard, or there's too many distractions, I can't, or something better is coming up. We call that chasing your shadow. You'll never catch it. It'll always, if that becomes the momentum, if that becomes the hypnotic rhythm of your life, there's always something better. There's always something better. And you get to a certain stage, and just when you're ready to sort of crack the egg, it's like, there's a better egg. I should probably use that and go for that. Or, and that just becomes this perpetual sort of spinning on the wheel And that's not quite the same
So
thing.
do you think that this would be a good place to kind of look back at your notes and revisit your
Absolutely.
what do you want and why do you want it?
I think it's a perfect time for that, because you want to always reevaluate what's going on and sort of, again, adjust your focus. Am I still on target for what I'm looking for? What do I want? Why do I want it?
Does my what still match my why?
Exactly. Because any of these exercises, we can get obviously infatuated with either the phenomena of them, where, wow, that was really cool, or that was really this or that, whatever it was. And it's so intriguing that I just want to hang there for a while, and you just lose track of your target. And so, but it's good at this point, especially halfway through, that, we're readjusting our focus. We're saying, okay, here was my original. What do I want? What do I want it? Is that still good? Am I still on target for that? Let me reaffirm to myself why that's important to me. And does it boost my energy toward that? Does it give me more legs? Does it give me staying power, tenacity to sort of lock onto that? I feel like I'm even closer to my target now. So that should give you the impetus to sort of, drive home and really put your effort into it, and using all the techniques that we've done in the previous 22 days or whatever it is. So I think this is the perfect place to do that, and just give it a broad view first before we actually move into the next stage, which is, a little bit more intense, let's say, because it is about, instead of sort of using these broad techniques, it's really about honing your focus into a laser-like beam rather than this sort of broad territory. It's not a spotlight anymore. Now it's a laser. We're moving it toward that sort of intense focus.
Right. And I know that you mean that like within the meditation, but do you think that there's also value in revisiting your what to make it even more, like maybe looking at, is it specific enough, or is it too amorphous, or, things like that?
Yeah. And again, one of the traps in doing that, there's always a flip side to everything, right? So it's one thing or the other. So when you start to bring this up, even if you get it written down the first time well, and the why really well, and you've got all that squared away in your brain, as soon as you make the commitment to do that, things are going to start popping up all over the place, or it seems that way.
Right.
Again, as though something from the outside was throwing these curveballs at you to really test your mettle, basically, to see if you really want that. What are you willing to do to get that?
And you mean both external events in your life, but also internal questions, or
of course,
kind of like uncertainties internally?
Yeah, and they sort of match up in a way,
Right.
So it's like any kind of doubts that I might have about my ability to do something or whatever will stimulate those events, other events in your environment, to question that as well.
Right.
Seemingly from the outside, right? Somebody from work may come and say like, wow, man, this report sucked. It wasn't your best work. Are you sure you can do this? It mirrors what you're already doing, where that has never come up before. So it's like, oh, I got to put this aside now because I really got to focus on my job. And, just all of those things, instead of seeing it as part of that bigger picture and all the little distractions that may come up along the way. Not that, doing a good job at work is a little distraction. It's just like, okay, I've got to bear down and focus on this. And as I focus on that event, my practice is going to come up as well. Or as I focus on my practice, those other external events are going to come online as well. So it's not like those things, by focusing on your practice, that those things just dissolve away and become okay. You still have to put effort into them, right? But it's sort of like I'm trying to bring the two parts, into balance. And make the equation in my head that the more my practice is focused and the better I do at these practices, the better my external environment is going to become as well in those areas. So those things, it's not like they're going to take care of themselves, but I'm able to make the equation balance. So, but it doesn't mean that those little things are going to not come up. They are. And when you get to this stage where you're halfway through, they're going to start to really come up.
And again, I think it's important to know, like, one of the things that you're always saying is that, like, when those things come up, they're not indicators that something is bad or going wrong or whatever, or that it's totally adversarial. It's more like that you're being effective, and that those are important questions to answer or situations to deal with or things to resolve internally so that you have more clarity. It's like, like you're always saying, if you're congruent with something, it'll happen. So it's like those places where we're incongruent are opportunities to kind of look at them and
right, and take care of them.
Right.
You need everything to balance. So again, I usually find that when those things come up, instead of looking at it as a bad thing,
right,
I'm flipping it and looking at it as a good thing. It means
right.
that I'm getting to the core of the issues that are holding me back or have kept me from achieving that already.
I'm making progress.
Right. So this is a good thing, and it's a good way to sort of flip it in your head so that you're not seeing everything as adversity, but more as an indicator that things are getting done. Some things aren't always, not everything is pleasant on the road to having more
getting the
pleasantness in life, right? It's not like, oh, I'm going to do, if it was that easy, hell, everybody would just, they'd be in the zone all the time, right? Yeah. It's like, no, it takes some work. You want a good body, you got to work out. You got to eat the right foods. You got to, you've got to keep a certain schedule. There are things that you have to do that may not be so palatable or,
And I think that that's a great transition into the practice of focusing within a meditation, because in a lot of ways it is like exercise.
Oh,
it does feel like exercise. You feel like you hit that fatigue point. And I imagine that in the same way that when you exercise and you bring yourself to that point of failure, is there a correspondence there between going to the point of physical failure during exercise and finding out what your point of physical or mental failure is when you're trying to focus on a single thing? Exactly.
And, the idea is, again, you'll see that a lot of these things, they mimic things that we've done already. It's because they're sort of principles that can be applied to each thing going along, each exercise going along sort of takes the same course. So, and the same thing with this physical focus, right? Or not just physical focus, but mental focus, right? So when you are focusing on something intently, it's a lot of mental energy that you're expending on a single task. It's not, I think most people, if they don't have an idea of meditation, or sometimes when they do have an idea of meditation or they've done some meditation, it seems to be this, go to this placid place and do this, whatever they do. But it's not always that way. Meditation is becoming familiar with, right? Or being able to concentrate on a certain thing. Now, concentration takes energy to be able to do that. Whether you're concentrating on a physical thing like lifting a weight or throwing something or whatever it is that you do physically, the same thing happens mentally. Yes, there is that balance side, which most meditation people or trained meditation teachers, they're always trying to get people into this relaxed state. That makes sense, seeing that our culture generally is pretty high stress.
Right.
So, not effective high stress, but high stress. So the opposite would be showing them the value from relaxing or being in a placid state or whatever that is. But it tends to be a little more amorphous, where on the opposite side of that, there's meditation that is highly concentrated and focused on a single thing. And so achieving a certain goal, achieving a certain level of focus in your, meditation or your mental state. And then what happens is, of course, it's like cross-training, right? So as that becomes better, the relaxation part is going to become better as well. So because there's not a lot of, we need that relativity of looking at it and saying, okay, if I'm constantly working on tennis, if I play against people that are at my same level, I sort of plateau and stay there. It's a little up or down, whatever. But if I always play against people that are better than me, I'm going to rise to the challenge that much quicker, because I'm constantly thinking, well, maybe this time I'll get 1 point. Maybe next time I'll get 2 points. Pretty soon I'm going to be able to sort of, at least give them a bit of a challenge.
Right.
So it's like constantly pushing you to that level. The same thing. And then, of course, working or playing a game of tennis with somebody who was at your level but isn't only working on those guys, you're going to kill them, right? Because it's like you've constantly been honing your skills at a much higher level. The same thing happens with this. So if you're working on that focused concentration and expending the effort that way, your relaxed meditation or your open focus is going to be so much better because you have that juxtaposition between the two. You have the difference. Tense muscle, relaxed muscle. How can I really get super relaxed if I don't know what super tense is? You're always just sort of in the middle. I'm kind of relaxed, I'm kind of tense. It's that mediocre is the thing that we're trying to avoid. It's like, we want to be at that, intense focus, and we want to be in that intense relax, if we can say it that way.
Right.
So
in training focus, take us through the exercise.
Sure.
Of like the technical practice.
The technical practice of, I mean, there's so many ways to do it, but this is just the way that I learned it the first time, and it's very simple, and that's key, because you don't want to make something too complex, because then it's just frustrating, because it is hard to focus. Most people aren't used to doing it.
Sounds boring.
You are pushing it. So, and I guess it depends on how badly you want what you want.
Right.
So then, because I could say, I want, I want, and I've heard this a number of times, right? I want the income and the freedom or the respect of being a physician, but I don't want to go to school for it, because that sounds boring.
Right.
Taking 8 years of school or 12 years of school or whatever it is. Yeah. So it's the same thing. What are you willing to do to achieve your goal, to create what you want?
Right.
So, can it be boring? I've never found it to be boring. It can be frustrating because it's hard to do it. And, it's simple, but it's not easy. We've said it a million times, and that's the thing. You're going to laugh when you see, I hope you laugh at how simple this exercise is, and you're going to scream and cry and probably send me bad notes when you find out how frustrating it is to be able to do it. So that's that.
But at the same
balance.
time, for somebody that does have an esoteric practice of any kind, it's a great indicator of maybe why your stuff's working or not working.
Right. It's a great indicator if you're a martial artist and then you have one of your construction buddies that doesn't know any martial arts try to beat the shit out of you. With gloves on or whatever. It's like, go ahead, do it and see. See where your 10 years of trophy gaining has gotten you.
Right.
So it's like, very few people actually put themselves in that place.
So what's the flip side of looking at, because on the one hand, you're looking at the truth of your capacity for focus, which is an indicator of the level of your practice, or maybe the effectiveness of what you've been able to achieve through your energetic work so far.
There's no doubt.
But it can be discouraging. So how do you put that in context for yourself so that yes, it may be frustrating or whatever, but how do you frame it for yourself? So
how do I frame it for myself?
So that it's not frustrating to the point of discouraging, because it's hard. It is hard. It's hard.
There's no doubt. I think it comes down to a simple thought, a simple idea. I want the truth more than I want to be right. I don't need somebody to blow hot air up my ass, to tell, to say that I'm so great or whatever, and I don't need to obscure the reality of what I can do or not do. I want to know where I am at every given moment in my practice and what I achieve with that. And if it's not working, it's not because some outside forces are jerking me around. It's because, I haven't worked enough on this aspect, and then again, choosing, is the end result important enough for you to get down to work and start doing it, with new zeal, and get in there and go and really evaluate, where am I right now? You know, where is my focus right now? How can I do this? Am I willing to put the time in? Oh God, you know, it's like, oh, I can't do this for more than a second. You know, it's like, good, you know where you are.
Right.
No judgment. It's just that's where you are.
Right.
You're not beating yourself for that. You know, it's just a mindset. I think that's the idea. You know, we're our worst taskmasters. Nobody beats us up more than we do ourselves. And that's the thing, you know. So can you really, you know, can you really have enough mercy on yourself to say, this is where I am, you know, realistically. And, you know, even though I've been doing this for 5 years, 10 years, whatever it was, this is where I am realistically. Can I move myself from here to this other point? Can I build my focus? Can I build my relaxation or whatever you're doing to the point where I can actually achieve what I want consistently? That's all it is. And without any, you know, flagellation on yourself, you know, you're not, you know, walking on glass on your knees, you know, to punish yourself for not putting enough effort in or doing what it is. It's not about that. It's just about you being able to do what you want. It's about being able to move forward and create what you want in your life. But you have to be, you know, realistic enough to say, you know, where am I? If I don't know where I am, I cannot move forward. I don't know where I'm going if I don't know where I am.
And even if I'm moving forward, it's going to be in vain because I'm not going to be aware of it because I don't know where I've started.
Now you're walking in circles.
Right.
That's like being lost in the woods and not knowing enough woodcraft to get out.
Right.
Walk a straight line. You know, most people, again, with the rescue guys, you know, they go and they find them, you know, they find them
people walking
expired,
in the
you
woods,
know, half a mile from where they started.
Right.
Because they've just walked a big circle,
Yeah.
and you know, without taking care of what things come first, what things come second. You know, shelter, water, food, staying put in one place, they'd still be there.
Right.
But you know, running or thinking that you're going someplace but you don't know where you are is just, it's fruitless. You're just wasting your time. So, you know, evaluating where you are, and this is a great technique for both evaluating where you are and giving you a litmus test to see, you know, where you're going and how you're doing.
So before you go into more description of the exercise, I don't want to forget, when you finish the exercise, what kinds of notes do you make in your journal so that you kind of have a track record of where you are?
Sure. I mean, again,
when you're saying like able to focus for 30 seconds or able to do, you know, I mean, are you pretty technical about it like that?
I mean, for me, it is. It's more of I'm jotting it down. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not getting obscured by the details, right? I'm not getting, you know, sidetracked by the details because that's just one more distraction, right? Who cares if it's this or it's that or whatever,
right?
You know, it's like, it's just being able to do this, or, you know, I was physically uncomfortable today, so I had less success, or, you know, I could only focus for 10 seconds at a time before I started to lose the image, or whatever it is, whatever area you're focusing on, right? So mine are very sort of cursory.
Right.
They're more like lab books than they are journals.
Yeah.
Journals, I think a lot of times, I mean, journaling is good, but for some people, I mean, I can tell you for me, my journals look like lab books. You know, it's like date, time, what I'm doing, what I expect to get out of it. And then, you know, here was the exercise. This is what, you know, this is how long I did it. Here was the results. Boom, done, concise. I have no time. Unless something really extraordinary happens, those will be the only places where you see me write out some more. But other than that, no. I'm very cursory with that because I just think, for me, it's just another distraction to sort of layer on the detail of all of this obscuration of, you know, oh, I felt like this and I did that. You know, it's like, oh my God, who the hell cares? You know, this is just a journal of your own work. You know, just a benchmark of where you're going. Am I making progress or am I not making progress?
Right.
And what do I change to go in the direction I want to go?
Right.
That's all. You know, I tend to do that with everything that I do. I don't have large journals of material, you know. For me, I mean, some people, it's great. It's a good way to work. But for me, it's not one of those things that I put value in putting things down, but not to that level of detail it becomes a distraction. It's just one more phenomena, my subjective feelings about whatever.
Right.
Who cares? It's like, I don't care. And if I don't care, it doesn't matter who else cares, because nobody else reads my journals except me. I'd rather have a nice, clean, detailed marking of, what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, where I'm expecting to get, and how did I do that time? And am I making progress looking back from the beginning to the end?
Right.
That's it.
Right.
That's all. It's just an indicator. It's like a thermometer. I don't have any,
right.
I don't need a fancy thermometer. It's like I need
Just need an accurate one.
I need an accurate one.
Right.
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 So that way, I sort of liken all of those things to that level of practicality.
I like that. That's a good analogy. Yeah.
So
take us through it.
cool. All right. So first we're going to use a series of numbers. It could be anything, but I would just stick with this. It's a traditional way to do it, but and this is how simple it can be, so that people don't get messed up with paralysis by overanalysis. You don't need special paper, you don't need special ink, you don't have to paint things, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do that. I put the paint thing in there for you. So it's like, if you want to, and later on you can make it, it's fine. If you want to make something fancy, just remember, the fancier you make something, the more that's more detail you're gonna have to focus on. So you want to keep it simple in the beginning. Simple is the best, because it will really get to the point of what you're trying to do. So my trusty tools, all kinds of technical things. 3x5 cards. Okay. Ta-da! Sharpie. Okay. A big Sharpie. That way you can, basically you can make it big enough so that you're not struggling to see it, because it might be at a distance, right? You could do this exercise at any distance that you could easily see the card or what you're doing.
Right.
So I'm just taking this and I'm going to write down 3 separate numbers, right? And the first one is going to be a 3, right? So number 3.
Exciting.
It's very exciting and extremely technical. You can see how long it took me to do this, right?
He wrote a 3, folks.
So,
It's ridiculous.
and a 7. It's like a magic trick, you see? It's
Yeah,
really
actually,
good.
I feel like we're doing
I'm waiting
magic
for the
here.
rabbit to come out. It's like,
Pick a card. Any
how
card.
did you do that? And a 9. So, okay. All right, so I'm using that series, 3, 7, and 9. Obviously, you could use any of them, but traditionally, 3, 7, and 9 is what I learned, so that's how I'm doing it. And I'm setting it up. Could you do it holding it? Yeah, except that you're going to have to hold it. So I would, just prop it up on something, any way that you can. It doesn't matter. I wouldn't have those there, just so that you can isolate the number.
Right.
But that's the idea. It could be on a little stand, it could be next to a picture or whatever, but the idea is that you're going to just focus on this, the card as well as the 3, but mostly the 3. It's just, this is the blank background. You don't want to write it on something where there's a lot of other detail on there, because every bit of detail is going to be focused on, right? So I'm focusing on the 3, and I'm looking at it, I'm staring at it, I'm relaxing my body. Again, we need to equate relaxation with focus rather than force, where I'm really concentrating. And the more tense I make, the more impedance I have in the flow of energy in my body. So the more relaxed is going to be more focus. The more tense, the more my focus is going to waver. So I'm just relaxing, I'm staring, I'm blinking, sure, but I'm just sort of memorizing and almost looking at it and memorizing all the lines. Should be really basic like that. And then at a certain point, I'm just going to close my eyes and try to hold it exactly the same way that I saw it on the card. So the 3, black 3 on a white background. Now I don't let it change or shift. I don't let it get bigger or smaller or invert or flip. Anytime anything changes like that, you're going to open your eyes again, because the idea is to hold it exactly the same way it is on the card. So I see the black on the white background. If it starts to shift, I'm opening my eyes, I'm refocusing on it again. Give yourself a few seconds, whatever, to refocus on it, and then I'm closing my eyes. Sometimes it's a good practice if that's even too hard, where it doesn't come in right away or whatever, or it shifts right away. You want to sort of stare at it for a minute, or in that range, so that it sort of gives you that after image on your retina. And then when you close your eyes, you're seeing it there, and you're just sort of filling it in. So that becomes black on a white background, and I'm holding it there for as long as I can. But literally, as soon as it starts to change, even if the background changes color, anything like that, you're just going to open your eyes and refocus. And you're going to do that, and just sort of give yourself, find out how long it is that you can hold it. And what you want to be able to do is to hold it and increase the time that you hold it. Now, I don't want you to become discouraged, because this is, even though it's simple, it's it can be a very difficult exercise, because people aren't used to having to hold focus like this for an extended period of time. So even when people first start this, even if they can get 1 to 3 seconds of focus, that's pretty good. So don't become discouraged if it's like, oh, it's only a second and it starts to change, or I can't even bring up the image, or whatever it is. Go back, do it again, open your eyes. Make sure you're telling yourself, tell yourself, say it out loud if you're in a place where you can do that. When I first start the exercise, I'm holding this number 3 to increase my ability to focus and hold a specific image or something, whatever your words are. And I do it. And if it starts to shift, I'm reopening my eyes, focusing again, closing my eyes, holding it again. Each time should get a little better or if you're getting fatigued, then you stop, right? But you can start with 3, and I'd probably do the 3, a few times, whatever feels comfortable. There's no set number of times to do it. Do it a few times, and then shift to the 7, then shift to the 9. It's all the same. It's the same technique, just with a different symbol, basically, and we use numerals instead of anything else.
And what's the purpose of changing them?
Just to give you a different, you're not always going to focus on the same thing, right? So you don't want it to just become,
when I see a 3,
I can hit a 3, no problem.
Yeah,
but somebody says, well, can you hold a 7? You go, oh.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Right.
Not the 7. Anything but the 7.
The hardest one.
Right, that's the hardest one, right? It's a bent line. So again, it's just to switch it up a bit. Yeah. But I wouldn't get too crazy with it. Personally, the other thing that's good about the numerals as opposed to other symbols is numerals don't really have a moral value to them. If you start using things like Om symbols or Sanskrit, which most people can't read anyway or interpret correctly, then you're entraining to that symbol, the vibration of that symbol, and that can change the outlook and it can change the outcome of what you're doing. So we really want to use something that's relatively neutral. You could even use neutral symbols like an equal sign, or a plus or a minus, or really, I would try to stay with things that are relatively neutral, if that's the case. Everything has a meaning to you, but most people have, at least in this culture, have worked with enough numerals, right, to just sort of, they're numbers. So it's like there's no like, oh, 3s are so much better than 7s. It's like, right. Or whatever. There's no value structure in you, putting it out there as far as something that's innately good or bad. Again, we're trying to stay in the neutral territory.
Right.
And that way, your mind doesn't give you one more distraction to sort of take you off the course.
But there is also benefit in making the focus arbitrary.
Yeah. Again,
because you're just passionate about the focus. It's not like you.
Exactly.
It's easy to focus on something that you're excited about or passionate about, or you feel has a depth of meaning to it, or whatever.
Sure, but also the opposite is true. For as many people as have that, like the people that would, I'm just choosing this at random, but I'm just saying, as an arbitrary symbol that most people don't really understand in its construction and format of all the lines and all of that. It's like the Om symbol or some other Sanskrit symbol, right? There are very few people that can actually read that or really understand the, yeah, I mean, they know the basic meaning, but regardless of the meaning that they know, when they focus on that symbol, if they can't get it, they're gonna, there are enough people that say, oh no, I can't even focus on this symbol, there must be something wrong with me. So there's that moral judgment that comes back to you, and you start beating yourself for that. You've given it some some value that isn't really there. So I find the numbers to be, just sort of neutral, and anything that's like that. I mean, later on we'll do other things that are three-dimensional, like a pencil or something like that. But again, it's something that doesn't have like a moral value to it that you can start using that as a big stick to hit yourself with, because you're so bad. It's like it's the whole idea, right?
An image of you with
a giant pencil. That's right. That's horrible. That's for all the years of not writing a journal.
4-foot pencil.
So yeah, it is. I mean, but again, it's one of those things for me is really important to drive home to people that you will progress so much faster if you don't give yourself these containments of moral value and these things where it's like just giving you more ideas of why you're not worthy or why you can't do it or that there's something wrong with you. The more neutral we make things, they just become things. They do have value, but they have value on both sides, right? It's a neutral, right? So if it's something that I can use and I need, I use it and I take it and I utilize it, right? I use it for myself, bringing myself to a certain place. But if I have no use for it, believe me, if I take the Om symbol and throw it away, there's not going to be a lightning bolt that hits me in the head after that. It's not the same thing. If it has no value for where I'm going right now, then there's nothing else out there that's going to like give you the smackdown for that. Only you will give you the smackdown for that. It's all you. So if it's something of value to you, use it. If it's not, don't worry about it. It's not something that's inherently has to be done in order to have you progress. You'll find your own way to do that. You'll find your own symbols that have deep meaning for you. And the meaning should equate how well they're utilized for you and how they get you from point A to point B in the most efficient way, the most effective way. So other than that, it's not like they have some kind of inherent value for mankind.
Yeah,
everyone included.
And I don't want to drag it out or go too far into it, but I think it's important because you've always said that you're kind of barometer for what to do, what to do next, what to keep as aspects of your practice and what to get rid of has always been, does it work?
I'm a hermeticist at heart. We keep what works. We increase that value, we drive it home more and more. What works and what doesn't work, I leave aside. And what worked for me 10 years ago doesn't work for me now.
And I think that it's also important because it's also what we're trying to do here with, teaching this stuff in this way is that, allowing the, esoteric practices and energetic practices to evolve literally based on what works and to drop those attachments to whatever.
And what doesn't work for me may work beautifully for you or somebody else, and that's fine. It's like, but gauge it by that. What works for you, and don't.
That's such a difficult thing, I think, for us to. I mean, it's been really hard for me personally to really like get a good handle on, and I think it gets better all the time. But it's like. It's like having the confidence to trust yourself rather than your authority figure or your teacher or whatever,
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's...
Because we're all different, right? Yeah. I mean, we're all fingerprints. And so even within a very old or structured tradition with millennia of background or whatever it is, history, they are still guidelines. They're guidelines. Here's how you begin the practice. Here's sort of the parameters where you're going to be. But if each person is different, why do you think that they're going to have exactly the same end result? Why do you think they're going to have exactly the same experience on the way to getting wherever they want to get? They won't.
Right.
Show me two people in the same tradition that have had exactly the same. I would challenge that.
But we like to think of things that way, because that's like how you go through school, or it's like a ladder that it's like,
because it's a verification that you're okay.
Right. I'm where I'm supposed to be.
You're in the norm.
Right.
And it's like, and that's just so much bullshit, because nobody's in the norm. We're all individuals. And is that to say that my experience, because it went this way, is better than your experience, even though we both got to the same place? No. Your experience is far more pertinent to you and more valuable to you than my experience is for you. Right? It's just a guideline on how to get you there. It's like, here's where you start. Here's the goal. Get to the other shore. We're starting at the same we're starting on one side of the beach, and we're going to get to the other shore across this bay. But my experience of getting there, maybe I stop along the way and dive down, look at the coral, look at the rocks, whatever it is, look at some fish. You're like just badassing it to the other side. You just want to get there as quick as possible. Does one have more value than the other? Only, mine has more value to me because it's my experience. Yours has value to you because it's your experience. We both end up on the shore. Or sometimes we don't, but that doesn't lessen our experience, right? So that's the thing. And I think that that's the same thing with all of these really, entrenched traditions, that we have so much information now that they didn't have. And understanding of different aspects of these things from not just an esoteric idea, but also a scientific idea. We're merging the two together. We have tools that they would have never even considered. And it's not that, did they have some inherent, deeper understanding of these things more than we do? No, they don't. They never did, and they had less to deal with. They had less distractions. That was a plus. When all you're worried about is, survival, from one day to the next, and the only thing that's going to sort of help you in that is your focus on this. That was a pretty clear focus. But you didn't have, MTV and computers and, extra car payments and braces and,
right.
All of these things. Not that any of those things aren't important or that they are purely distractions, but the idea is that look at all the other things in your life. They didn't have to choose between doing their practice and watching a sitcom.
Right.
Going to the movies, going out to dinner, doing whatever, all of these things, they just didn't have that. So in some ways, that little bit of isolation was a plus for them to be able to focus more on what they were doing because they had nothing else to do, really. Once it was dark out, you're done for the day. And once it's light out, you're surviving, taking care of what needs to be taken care of so that you're eating and progressing in life. So we have a few other pitfalls, but we also have all these tools that are, most of us are literate. Back in the day, it was like 3 to 7% in the Middle Ages, and probably even less than that way back when. And then as time progressed, we got more and more so. So we have a ton of information. Many of us know multiple languages, so we can read texts in their original form. We have all kinds of information at our disposal on the computer. We can tap into other libraries. It's just the amount of information. I think if you brought one of those old practitioners here and showed them everything that they could possibly get, they'd be like just thinking that they were in heaven now.
Right.
So that's the thing. I mean, so there are those pluses and minuses, but I think that these practices need to evolve with where we are as a society and where we are as people. We have a lot of information. How do we, sort of rend it down to its most essential, throw out the chaff, but that's going to be different for each of us. And the only thing that we can use to gauge what is good and what is bad for us is, does it work or does it not? Give it a fair try and see. If it doesn't, or it conflicts too much, or it's not moving in the right direction, and I'm not making progress in where I want to be, I'm not getting to that other shore quick enough for me, or in a way that I can measure my progress, then you got to shift something. You got to step back, get that hawk-eye view again of, which field am I looking to move toward? Where is going to be the best hunting ground? And then can I focus in on that target that I want? That's all. So there you have it. The first episode, the first foray into focus.
Awesome.
And yeah, that's it for now.
For now, yeah.
More to come.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, guys. Enjoy and good luck with the practice.
Yeah, I'd say don't get hung up on making the 3.
Yeah. Nothing too fancy.
Nothing too fancy.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Yep.